I am Nicole Zumpano. I'm the Director of Distance Learning. You are here to talk a little bit about accessibility. So with that, welcome. You have the ability today to essentially choose your own learning adventure. So if you already know everything you need to know, like Dominique, about accessibility, you can simply listen and learn and just hang out. You can listen and do. On your table, there are paper notes. I'm a big fan of tactile learning combined with other things. You do not need to use this. However, if you want to take notes, you're more than welcome. I also have a link to a digital copy if you prefer to just do it online immediately. And then finally, you hit the option later to listen and demonstrate. Because there are so many of you and because there's so much to cover with accessibility, I didn't want to say, take out your laptop, let's do this right now, and then have 5 people be waiting and the other 3 saying, well, I don't know where to, how did you click? That's going to be at the end. So if you want to hang out at the end, I do have a document that you can practice with accessibility to make sure you've got it on your own, and we'll cover that later. If you are here for PDF remediation, you're in the wrong room, my friends. That is going to be its own separate beast on a different day, because I have to be blatantly honest with you. No matter who you talk to, people in universities, people that are in accessibility for a living, PDFs are awful. So we will at one point have something with PDF remediation. I'm still learning. My team is still learning, my other team of 1, our instructional designer, Christina Hansen. We're trying to learn all we can with that, but just be aware, you want to start weaning yourself off of PDFs. So if you're interested in the guided notes that you see on your table, but you want a digital copy, you can go ahead and copy that down. If you've got the notes in front of you and you don't have a laptop, that is A-okay, it's perfectly fine. I'll go ahead and move on from this. And I will give you this presentation, so you will have access to this slide deck at the end. So, show of hands. How many of you in here have run an Ally accessibility report at some point? All right, just a few of you. I know not everybody here is a faculty member. That's perfectly fine. Everything I tell you applies to staff and faculty at the same time. You've probably heard many people say educational institutions are not the only people that have to abide by this regulation. Public libraries, public police departments, public park districts, there are a slew of people. We do have the advantage being in education. We're used to dealing with accessibility with students all the time, so you actually have a leg up a little bit on that. The reason I asked this question is we are going to base today's conversation over all of these crazy errors that pop up inside the Ally accessibility report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you typical accessibility problems we're finding, and then we'll talk about how to remediate those and fix those. So our inspiration is the actual report. For those of you that are not staff members, inside Blackboard, all faculty have the ability to run a report, and it'll generate a dashboard and tell you this is how many problems this course has related to accessibility. These are major, these are minor, and so on. This is a snapshot of institutional data. So back when this was taken in August of this year, this is for the 2025 fall semester right now, we saw on average there was about 82% of the courses that met the accessibility threshold. I do want to use caution with that. Those numbers were a snapshot of that minute in time. Somebody could have been working on their course as we were running this report, and if they made improvements, those would not be reflected. So just keep that in the back of your mind that A, those reports are just one snapshot in time, and B, we do have the ability to run institutional-wide reports to see how everyone's courses are doing with accessibility. Now, Ally, the tool that we use, takes a look and categorizes its issues in 3 different severity levels. If there are severe errors, you're going to see a red circle that pops up with an exclamation point. That means that this document is not accessible at all. You need to pay very serious attention to those. We've got some major ones that has an exclamation point inside an orange triangle. Again, they're saying these are really important things you need to focus on. And then we have our minor ones that basically say, you know, these could be better for everybody, but they are still readable in some form as they are. A little FYI, Blackboard uses the name Ally for their accessibility report. I don't know if it's a playoff on this, but just so you are aware, there is an organization out there called the Ally Project. This is their logo. You can see it looks like there's a person in the A and also an outline of a person in the Y. The word ally, when we're talking about it in terms of this organization, inside the two L's are really numbers. So they're saying ally, there are 7 characters in between the A and the Y. And if you are an ally, it means you are a supporter. You are there to cheer on somebody and back things up for them. So this is a community-driven organization, and it's just something for you to be aware of, because sometimes when you're online, you're going to see a hashtag in social media, or you're going to see this term, A11Y. That refers to digital accessibility. Because remember, accessibility looks different and has a different definition depending on the context it's being used. So that's just a random factoid for you. So we're going to do a short poll to get a sense of where you are in the room. So for this poll, you'll either need a laptop or your phone, a device that you can use. And I'm going to ask you the question, how you're feeling about your knowledge of accessibility now. Now to do this, you can either go to Slido, slido.com, and at the top of that web page, you're going to see a join code. You would put in 1601224, or if you can reach the QR code, go ahead and scan that. You can come up if you need to, and that'll take you to the poll. And you can see that the poll is going to update in real time, just to give us a sense of how everybody's feeling. It's anonymous. I cannot see what your answer is, so don't be worried about that. I'll wait about 2-3 more minutes. There's about 17 of you in here. I see there are 12. All right, this is great data. This is super positive. Most of you are feeling pretty good. You're on your way. That's excellent. Those of you that are nervous, you're not feeling really good about it, it's okay. By the time you leave here, you're going to have more of an understanding of what you need to work on, some of the things that you can remediate. Thank you for that. Where I am, again, Director of Distance Learning. I'm also an adjunct instructor for 2 universities. I'm in the same place most faculty are. I'm remediating all of my online graduate courses, and I'm remediating all the documents that are related to my job here. So I look at the accessibility part the way that Maya Angelou might have looked at other things, where basically I did the best I can do with what I knew, but now that I know better, I have to do better. So this is the mindset that I have. You're at where you're at, and that's okay. But once you start to learn more about this, then it's your responsibility to your students to start to implement this. All right, so the first red flag of errors that we are seeing have to do with headings within any of your documents. You can see here in that institutional report that we had, there's over 2,100 incidences across the college as a whole, the institution, where the document does not have headings. That's a pretty easy fix, and those numbers will drop. But you can see all of these, whether it's the HTML has empty headings, that means the heading is missing. The document's heading structure doesn't begin at 1, easy fix. Doesn't have any headings and doesn't begin at the right level. So what to know about headings? And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna jump out of this and go back in outside of Slido, because Slido is causing my transitions to not work. I want to focus you. So headings are there for hierarchy. The best way that you can think about a heading is to think about an outline. When you are developing an outline, you have different hierarchy of different topics that you want to talk about. If there are no headings and you give a screen reader, say a PDF that's 10 pages long, it's going to read from the first sentence all the way down to page 10, the last sentence. There are no breaks. And let's say midway through you say, well, gosh, I was wondering what it said about, landfills, and you want to go back. You can't go back. It will continue to read from the start all the way to the end. But when you have headings in place, it allows the screen reader to jump to different sections. That's the importance of them. When you use headings, you absolutely have to use them in the proper order. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. You have to go in order. You can't have heading 1 and then jump to heading 3 and then go back to heading 2. You can have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and then start heading 2 again. Heading 3, think about an outline. You could do it that way, but you cannot skip levels. So when I'm starting to look through, sometimes people will send me PDFs and documents. In PDF form, all of your headings are labeled as tags, and I'll open up the tag panel and I'll see it starts at heading 5. Completely inaccessible. It can't be read properly by a screen reader. So go in order. That's what you need to take away from this. 1, then 2, then 3. Another huge takeaway, headings always have to have an H1. Your heading 1 is the main idea of your entire document. Oftentimes people will have a title, that's the heading 1. Think of your outline. What is the main idea of your entire outline? And then you start to break it down. So anytime you see, whether it's a PDF or in Word or in any document you're in or in Blackboard, and it says headings missing or headings not at the right level, you need to go back in and make sure the very first sentence is a heading 1. You could have more than heading 1 in a document. I would caution against that. The most accessible documents will only have one H1. And then they have a bunch of H2s, some H3s, and down the line. But you really want to use caution with having more than one. Where can you find these? What do they look like in our most common programs? In Blackboard, if you're designing a course, your heading 1 is going to be the title. So when you're in Blackboard, and I've had to do this too, I've opened up every single page and I've highlighted the first word on the sentence, and if it doesn't make sense that it's a heading, I've had to add a heading in. Highlight it, click title. So in Blackboard, it's going to be an H1. In Word, you're going to use the text styles up near the top. You're going to start with one H1, and then you're going to do an H2, and then an H3, and so on. And I like to work in Google Docs. Google Docs has a different structure because Google is just weird like that. They name things differently. They have to do their own thing. You can have a title, that's fine, but you're better off starting with H1 for accessibility purposes. Now, this is a good tip for you when it comes to headings. You can change the font size. So one of the universities I work for is Michigan State, and they're great about handing out tips about accessibility. One of our rules is every time we make a course announcement to students, we have to take the very first entire sentence and make sure it's an H1. Well, when you have something as a heading 1, it comes up huge. Once you mark it as a heading 1, you can change the font size. So you're kind of almost masking it. You're doing the H1 heading more for a screen reader. So you can modify the size of the font once you have something labeled in H1. All right, so on your handout here, you can see there are a bunch of small stickers. If you are so inclined and you're working on the handout, go ahead and mark down on that page next to headings and structures this is for you. Do you need to work on headings? If you need to make it a priority that you're like, all my stuff's wrong, you need to put a red sticker. If you're like, you know, I'm pretty sure I do this, but I'm going to go back in and make a check, put a yellow little dot right next to it so you know what to work from later. And if you've got this covered and this is just a review for you, go ahead and put a green. And again, that's just for you. All right, another common error we see is lists. In this particular case, the HTML content has malformed lists. Super easy fix. The number one thing to remember with lists is don't make them yourself. So don't hit the asterisk key and make your bulleted point list with the asterisk key. Don't use hyphens to make a bulleted list. And good Lord, don't mix your styles and have hyphens and asterisks all together. You need to use preset paragraph styles. So when you are in Word, it's going to be under the paragraph menu, and you're going to see the three little dots or the numbers, 1, 2, 3. Those are your lists. Use these because a screen reader will recognize that this is a list, and it will alert the person that's using it, you're about to encounter a list, and these are the items that are in a list. If you're in Blackboard, again, you're going to see right here, you're going to hit the little list button, looks like a paragraph, and then you see again the dots and the numbers that are aligned there. Now, there's a difference when you use a bulleted list and when you use a numbered list. You use a bulleted list when it doesn't matter what order your tips or tricks or list items are in. Always use a bulleted list for that. If sequence makes a difference, that's the only time you use a numbering list. If they have to do something in order. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's the only other time. Otherwise, always go for the bullets. What about emojis? We are emoji culture. We love our emojis. You can see this little clip right here. One thing that's very interesting, emojis come preloaded with alternative text. That's a good thing. But on the flip side, it's not a good thing. And I'll play it for you in a minute. But you are going to see how a screen reader reads this black message that has all these different emojis in it. So the bottom line is use them very sparingly, if at all. Here's what it sounds like. So you all might think you're hip. No, you must have. There you go. You might think you're all hip by, I'm putting emojis and bitmojis and emojis all over my documents. Don't. When you're using them for lists, again, we think it's very visually appealing to be like, hey, my favorite foods, a banana, I'm going to put a banana next to the banana and grapes next to the grape and so on. But when a screen reader is reading us, they're going to read favorite foods in whatever your alternative text is. Banana, half peeled, bananas. Grapes, grapes. Watermelon slice, watermelon. It's redundant for a screen reader. So while it looks fabulous, don't do it. If you still insist on doing it, choose one fabulous emoji, put it right next to the header. And then, again, use that pre-formatted bulleted list. Easy fix. How are you feeling about lists? Go ahead and put your dot down. All right, next up are links. This is a big one. Even though this one here says contents contains links without discernible text, it only says 200. That's not true. There's a lot more that are missing from that. So the language that you use when you are creating links matters. When you are linking to an outside resource, You have to make sure that the words you use explains where the link is going to go. Remember, a lot of these are for people not only with sighted disabilities, but also low sight. So people that might not even have a designated disability. You should never rely on the surrounding text to figure out where a link is going. That's a big no-no. So for example, with descriptive text, I would say to learn more, view our flyers about online and hybrid courses. In order for me to know, am I using descriptive text that's going to tell people where to go? Cover up the front. The underlying link, flyers about online and hybrid courses, that tells the person what they're going to see if they see it. That's an example of descriptive text. Never, ever, ever, and this I struggle with. I've got pages that I've got to fix on this. Don't use URLs as text. Do not write out the entire URL because a screen reader will read this one letter at a time, all the way through until it gets to the end. Don't do that. That's why we need descriptive text. Anybody know what the %20 means? That indicates a space. So when you're writing a file name or a URL, if there's a space in it, it'll put a %20. That's HTML. All right, let's do some practice. So I've got a few examples up there. I'm going to put a phrase up, and you need to think, is this good link language or is this bad link language? Click here.
Bad.
It's bad, because I'm going to click there. I don't have a clue where I'm going. Bad. Learn more.
Bad.
Bad. It doesn't tell me where it's going to take me. I have no idea what I'm going to learn more about. Because remember, you might be saying, but I say in the paragraph before, if you want to know more, learn more, you can't rely on the context before the link. You have to pretend that there's no other words on the page when you're writing descriptive link language. Visit our accessibility page. It's good. This is good because this tells me if I cover this up, I'm going to an accessibility page. Visit triton.edu to learn more. No. Trick question. It's bad. Why is it bad? Because the entire URL is written out. So when it's being read, it's going to say visit http://triton.edu. It's going to read that. A better option is to link the words Triton's website. If I cover up every other word in the sentence, I know that this is taking me to Triton's website. So it's okay to say click more, but if you do, you need to tell what clicking more is going to do for them. And you would not link the words click more. You would link the other words that come after it. Quiz 1 for Module 6, good or bad? Heads up, it's good. That tells me exactly where I'm going. I'm going to Quiz 1 for Module 6. All right, some link tips for you. If clicking on a link signals something's going to happen, they're going to fill out a form or they're going to print a form, you can link those words. Fill out, print, so they know what's going to happen when they do that. This is probably my #1 faux pas that I am still struggling, but I recognize that I'm going to have to try and do better. If a link opens in a new page or another format, you have to say so. For accessibility purposes, your links should not open to a new tab or a new page. I like it because I find it cleaner, but a screen reader does not like it because for someone with a sighted issue, it makes it difficult for them to get back. So technically, every link should open up in the same page. So that's one that I'm struggling with. However, if you have to get around that, make sure you're telling them where they're going to go, what they're going to see. So for this example, start by reading the article on photosynthesis. I can cover this up, and I know this link is taking me to an article on photosynthesis, I also know it's going to open in a different format. It's going to open in a PDF. So somebody with a screen reader will then know, oh, this opens to a PDF. I'm not going to open it. Or they might decide to open it. We don't know. And this one, this is what you would say if it opens to a new page. Our course schedule, again, I know if I click on it, I'm going to get the course schedule, has all the details you need. And in brackets, I say new tab. So again, it alerts someone, if you click on this, it's taking you off this tab and putting you on a new tab. All right, check in for your links. How are you feeling about your descriptive language? All right, color contrast. Do you see these numbers? 2,700 errors for color contrast. Color contrast is a big, big, difficult one. It's very difficult because in some instances, you have to do manual checks. So you have to know enough about color contrast to know, this might not work. Color contrast also changes depending on the size of your font. If you have smaller font or you have bigger font, the number ratios change. It's incredibly important, as we're knowing with color blindness, there's 350 billion people, roughly the entire population of the US, that has a color blind issue, a color vision deficiency. 1 in 12 are men, 1 in 200 are women. And then check this out. This is a great link to give you more of an understanding of what this looks like. So I've got this beautiful, bird picture here, but notice if I have a blue blind color vision, because there's different issues, then, whoops, this picture doesn't look like this, it looks like this to me. So it makes a difference. If I have a green blind, colorblind deficiency, here's my original. That's what it now looks like to that person. Oftentimes, people aren't going to tell you if they have a color blindness issue. They're not going to tell you because they don't want to. It's none of your business, or they don't necessarily even know it if it's mild. Here's another one. Depending on, this is my picture, this is what it might look like to somebody with another. So you see how drastically it changes. And then the most severe, black and white. Here's my color. Here's what it looks like to people that have color blindness in black and white. So it's a good reminder. That's why we don't want to disregard color contrast. Don't do this. I bust my graduate students all the time, and have to call them out and tell them this will fail an accessibility checker. And the way I put it to them is somebody with a vision disability won't be able to access your content. And that kind of guilts them a little bit into wanting to fix it. Don't do this. And don't do this. To give you some better ideas, and again, you might not be able to see this in the back because the contrast isn't good. That's good contrast against red. That's poor contrast. Good contrast, poor, good, bad. You can see black text on white background, light, and so on. So you're getting the idea. Other things to know, your best choice is to either go with a light text on a dark background or dark text on a white background. This is dark text on a light background. This is another big one. You never ever want to rely on color alone to convey a meaning. Because remember, somebody that is colorblind will not see that color. So I'll tell you how to remediate that and how to fix that. But this is an example. If I am somebody that has color blindness and I can only see black and white, I'm seeing this message and I'm thinking, I'm just glancing through it real quick. All right, And for those of you who can't see it, it says final exam has been moved to Tuesday in the lab, not in class. I might just gloss over it. However, not relying on color alone. I can use color still, but I have to give it another style with it. So I can make it colored and bold, or I can make it colored and italics. You can see here, I can also use words. I can put the word important in front of it, so a screen reader will read important, and then they know that this is important. And again, you can see here, I now used all three styles. I used color, I used bold, and I used italics. There's one style I did not use. Does anybody know what that one is? You look like you know.
Underline?
Underline. Don't underline, because underline is often perceived as a hypertext. So you don't want to underline content. You want to reserve your underline for hyperlinks that go someplace else. That's the only time you should be underlining.
What about strike through?
Strike through, I think it's difficult, isn't it?
I know the few times I've used a screen reader for it, it's not very clear. So I don't think, I'm not sure if it doesn't understand that there's a line through it, or it can't figure out the words behind the line.
Right.
So
best practice, probably not. All right, color in charts. So it's not just in your text. It makes a difference in your charts. Take a look at this. This is an example of a bad design. Again, looking at color blindness from black and white. Which one is agree and which one is disagree? No clue. We have no idea. This one's a little bit better because I now have a color-coded key. But again, these colors are so close to each other, I might not be able to interpret this. So the best option is to make sure you don't rely on color alone. Notice I have percentages outside here, and I have those same percentages right next to agree and disagree. It's not hard to do this. It's just, again, becomes a mindset. Same thing applies to line graphs. This is a gorgeous line graph in beautiful colors. However, if I have a colorblind deficiency, it might look like this. Now I have no idea which one is 1, 2, or 3. So the best way to combat this is to put symbols on your lines. So notice now, this line has triangles, so I know, okay, that goes with series 1. This one has a square, okay, that means series 3. And if I have a color deficiency, I can still figure out which line goes with which whatever in the key. Because again, I can see the symbols. Now, one of the reasons color contrast is so difficult is most programs do not have color contrast checkers built in. Unfortunately, for this one, if you don't play it safe and go with that black and white or really dark red against white or so on, you are going to have to go out and put it into a color contrast checker. And most of the checkers want a hex code. A hex code is an HTML color coding system so that they know exactly what color you want. So you can choose the color that you want, and then basically it'll give you the hex code number. And this is a screenshot of what it would look like in Google. On Google, I can show you where to go. Microsoft Word, same thing. I can get the hex code down here. And then once I have my hex codes, then I can come out to a contrast checker and I can insert those hex codes here and here, and it'll tell me if it passes or it fails. So just looking at this, let's say my foreground, I'm going to slide this over. Notice how my color changes. Let's say my background, I'm going to come this way, make it dark. I've got blue words on a gray background. It tells me it's going to fail. It's going to fail an accessibility checker, and it shows me what it looks like. And then what I can do, if I don't know what colors I want to use, I can play around with them. I can say, well, let me lighten up the background. And notice as I'm changing my background, my numbers on the bottom are starting to change. There we go, finally. We are looking at WCAG AA. So that is the standard we need to meet with the new legislation. So we always need to make sure that the AA is passing. Again, it's a little extra work to figure out color contrast. That's why it's so important. Just play it safe. And if you want those super fancy colors, you're going to have to come out into a contrast checker and just verify. Because Blackboard and other programs will call you out on it, but they're not going to fix it for you. So you're going to have to go in and get the hex code. All right, based on that, how are you feeling about color and contrast check-in? Go ahead and add your dot. And then we have one more big section and then some miscellaneous. All right, on to the next hot topic. Now, take a look at this error line for images and alternative text. Over 3,300 error messages over the institutional-wide Ally report saying the image does not have a description. And then we've got almost just as big of a one that says the document contains images without a description. So alt text is alternative text. It's read by a screen reader to describe an artifact. An artifact is an asset that's on the page. The reason we have alternative text is to convey a message or provide information. So this applies not only to people that have a vision disability and they're using a screen reader, this also applies to students that we might have that are trying to access the materials on a really slow Wi-Fi system. They don't have any bandwidth, and you've got 30 emojis in your page. It's going to load really, really slow. And when they won't load, the alternative text will show in its place. So you want to make sure that the alternative text conveys meaning and provides information. So different types of articles, things that need, or artifacts rather, things that need alternative text. Photographs, most of us know that already. Any logos that you have. So even in your Triton email signature, if you have Triton's logo, it's your responsibility to make sure that logo has alternative text. Images of text. Sometimes we make word art. It says learn more, or click here, act now. That needs alternative text. Charts and diagrams, infographics, GIFs, we love a good GIF, and anything that's a clickable image. So if you've got a little icon for print or social media icons, every single one of these needs alternative text. Be concise. So you don't want to write a dissertation for your alternative text, but you want to be descriptive. Limit the amount of decorative images. You do not need a cat with a hat on every single slide of your presentation. They're enjoyable. I love a good cat meme. You saw one in the beginning. Limit them. You can have them, but just limit them. When it is marked as decorative in alternative text, the screen reader will pass it on by. It won't acknowledge it. And again, you don't want to have too many of these. There are AI programs, including within Blackboard, that will help you generate alt text. If you're stuck, please check it. Just read it and see that it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, change it. You can change it. And again, you need to be thinking in the mindset when you are writing and reading alternative text. If I can't see, does this tell them what I want them to know? Add periods at the end, like a sentence. And you want to say roughly around 125 characters. There's not a hard stop. But again, remember, a screen reader is going to read aloud your description. So you do want to keep them concise. The don'ts of alt text. Never leave an alt text box blank. If it is a decorative image, oftentimes there'll be a check that you can, a little box that you can check if it's decorative. If there's no box that says check here for decorative, write the word decorative. If you're in the HTML, you can use alt equals quotation marks, but they're empty inside. Don't use the word image of unless. And the reason I say that is a screen reader, before it gets to your image, it's going to say image of. So if you add that text, it's going to say image of, and then it's going to read. So you don't have to do that. The only time you want to put a description is if it's relevant to understanding the context. So if you have an oil canvas painting, or you have a piece of clip art, or you have a black and white photo, and they have to know it's a black and white photo because you're talking about that type of art, then you can indicate what it is. Don't use the file name as your alt text. That is not a description. So you should never use the file name of the image. If you've got a cat GIF, you can't use catgif.move as your alt text. This came up yesterday. Dominique, I was able to do some looking on the accessibility and QR codes. Screen readers are different in that different models of screen readers interpret a QR code differently. So the safest thing is to have them as an image, because technically they're an image. And in your alternative text, because you have to have alt text for a QR code, make sure that you convey the purpose and the destination. Another option, you can go ahead and put a link right underneath it. You could mark this as decorative, and then you can have the link right underneath it. Or again, you can take the QR code picture as a whole and make this the hyperlink. And then in your language, you would say, click on this linked QR code to access Triton's website or wherever you want it to take you. Caution, note of caution for those of you that use Blackboard to create. Blackboard Ally will only look to see that you have alternative text. It will not look to see if it's good. So it's not going to tell you if it's descriptive. And that's most programs. Most aren't going to tell you if it's descriptive. All right, so let's think about some examples. So you've got an idea of what I mean by alternative text. We have a picture here of a picnic. So me going in my alt text and just saying a picnic, that's not very good alt text. If I want somebody to understand this picture, because they need to see this picture in order to understand my content. So instead, my alt text might be an outdoor picnic with an open basket with wine and bread. Apples, watermelons, grape, and wine sit on a red and white checker blanket. This conveys what this is for a screen reader. Another one, students working. Okay. But more descriptive, a female and male student with laptops open, both smiling, while the male shows something on his screen. This again does a better job of telling what's happening in this picture than students working. All right. What's an example of bad alt text for this picture?
Cats can't go.
Cat pig. What's a good example?
Cat playing with stuffed mouse on a blanket.
There you go. A cat. We can get more descriptive. We can say an orange kitten playing with a stuffed mouse on a bed or on a blanket, something like that. All right. Very good, very good. There is a website, and this is interesting. It's kind of fun. It's used more for AI prompting, but it applies when writing alternative text. It's from Google Arts and Culture, And this will give you a fun way to practice. So basically what you're going to do is you are going to get an AI generated picture from Google, and you are going to have to write the alternative text for that picture, and they will tell you whether your description is accurate or not. So they tell you you want to include information on the medium, the subject, and the content. So I'll just show you one just because they're neat. Oh, that's a bad one. I'm going to skip that one. I've seen that one. All right, so here's another one. So in this case, I might say this is a city landscape taken from the ground looking up. Period, so they put a period at the end. I'm going to say, okay, is that right? And it's going to say, okay, well, 64% match, that's pretty good. And then it'll go ahead and give me some tips at the bottom. Their description was a fisheye camera view of a New York street seen from below. So again, it's just a fun, activity that you can do if you wanted some extra additional practice. All right, last big topic, images and alternative text. How are you feeling about it? Is this something you need to work on? Is it something you've mastered? All right, let's get into the et cetera. There's more that don't necessarily fit into the accessibility ally report that we've themed on, but are still important. If you are somebody working in Blackboard, many of us are getting this error saying the HTML content has videos without captions or automated captions. For today, you can ignore that within. However, at some point, it will need to be addressed. Basically, what's happening is if we have a video, even if it's a YouTube, because a lot of our videos are YouTube videos, they have closed captioning, but you have to click on it and you have to watch it on YouTube sometimes. So what I've been doing as a workaround for this to start is I put a message underneath every video inside all of my graduate courses that just says to enable closed captions, please view the video on YouTube. And that's at least a workaround for me until I can figure out how to master that. Okay, fonts. Fonts are a big deal. The number one thing to remember with accessibility is to avoid serif fonts. If you're not quite sure what that means, this is a serif font. You'll notice on the serif font, the letters are embellished. They have these little wingy dingies on some of the ends. It makes it sometimes difficult for a screen reader to interpret. This is sans serif. This is blacklight. It's not very decorative, so it's very simple for a screen reader to interpret this. So be careful with the fonts that you're using. That doesn't mean you can never use a serif font. Use them sparingly. If you want a fancy whirly-dirly title of your document, you can use it, but only use it there. Don't use it throughout your entire document. And for good design in general, you never want to use more than 2 fonts. Fonts actually have partners, believe it or not. So these are some common accessible sans serif fonts. Not only are they good for screen readers, but it's interesting. Lexend, which is the one that I'm using, this is a Google slide deck. Lexend was created by Google, and they've started to do some research and found that the Lexend font can slightly increase dyslexia because of the way that the letters are blocked and the amount of space in between them. So it is interesting that there is a little bit of research behind it. All of our favorites, like Times New Roman, are not good fonts to use. They're just not accessible. RIP Times New Roman. All right, best practices. Be very clear and very simple language. We know you're all smart and educated. You don't need to remind people by using crazy jargon, especially for screen readers. Be clear and simple in your language. Break up big chunks of text into smaller paragraphs. Even if it gives the illusion of shorter content, our brains see one long paragraph that's 4 pages of a PDF, and we're exhausted mentally already. But if it's broken up into chunks, I tell my students also subheadings. It gives the illusion of things that are shorter, and it also makes it more accessible. Please do not use all capital letters unless it's an acronym. There are 2 reasons for this. Some screen readers will interpret anything in all capital letters as an acronym, and it will read it as ALLCAPS. Just like that text of the URL, it'll read individual letters. Don't do it. There's also some accessibility issues with the fact that all caps is one block, so it's difficult to read. By using case sentences where we have capital and lower, notice how, again, it's not a flat rectangle. It breaks up due to what letters are being used. So avoid all caps unless you're listing an acronym. If you are listing an acronym, I know you all know this, I'll remind you anyway, always spell out your acronym the first time you use it. Font size, 12 point and up. You should not have text lower than font size. Some you'll see in mine are smaller, they're 10 point because it's the image source. I'll get flagged on that. Just keep that in mind. If you are giving a presentation like I am doing, 18 point and higher. This is 18 point font. And then paragraph spacing should be 1.5. Tables of research is angry at me. They have a dartboard with my picture on it because I'm like, get rid of these tables, research. Tables are so difficult for screen readers to interpret. They read tables horizontally, cell by cell, and row by row. So you need to be very careful about your tables. Make sure they always have a title. Make sure you always have a row header, and you have column headers as well. Use the built-in table functions. Don't just create your own. Use the built-in functions. And again, remember the title, row, heading. This is probably, after my links, my biggest faux pas that I need to personally work on. I use tables a lot for design to format things. That's a big no-no because the screen reader reads it as a table. So I'm trying to break myself of that. And again, it's very difficult for a screen reader to read merged cells. So try as best you can not to merge your cells. Complex table, whole nother issue. With a complex table, you're realistically supposed to have alternative text that explains your entire table. All right, so what's next? Different things that you can do to get started. I know this was a lot of information thrown at you at one time. If you have access to a Blackboard Ally report, run it, start there. Start with the easiest things to fix them, and then work your way that way. Find your evergreen, most important documents. So if you work with creating documents for students, work with whatever is going to be student-facing first. The ones that you use all the time. Pick one skill and master it. Whether you want that skill to be alternative text or you want your list properly formatted, whatever you want it to be, pick a skill, focus on it, and master it. I'm in the process of designing, just for funsies, task cards for skills. For some people, they need somebody to tell them what to work on. So these task cards, you'd be able to print out and come out and pick one thing and be like, I'm going to look through my content and make sure this is right. Attend workshops, open lab hours. We have open lab hours. You can come in not anytime. You can come in, you can email us anytime. But we have designated hours where our instructional designer, Christina Hansen, will help you with accessibility. Every morning, for those of you that are faculty, staff, I'm sorry, I'll show you where else you could get it. But every morning in the CTE newsletter, I have a section called Monday Mornings Made Accessible, where I'm giving you one accessibility tip per week. For those of you that don't have access to the CTE newsletters, I have an accessibility page on the Office of Distance Learning SharePoint page, and that has every single tip I've given. I update it every week with the new tip. Set aside small blocks of time to work on accessibility. It's certainly not anything that you're going to master in a day. As you're moving forward, fix things as you are building. It's so much easier. It takes a little longer, but fix them as you're going. As I was creating this slide deck, every time I had an image, I stopped and I put alt text in. With a presentation, this wasn't in my notes, but when you're designing presentations, every single slide has to have a unique title. I did it as I was going. Stay positive. Once you get this stuff updated, you're not going to have to do that heavy lifting again. You can use online tools to help you remediate, but please be cognizant of data privacy concerns. Don't take a document that has student identifying information, upload it and say, make this accessible, because unless you're aware of the data privacy policy for that company, you know, you're exposing that data. So be careful with that. And again, the accessibility checkers you have access to, Ally, you know, in Word, all of these checkers, they're guides, they're not authorities. So just keep that in mind. They're not the be all to end all. So again, this is also on the ODL SharePoint page. It's on the CTE's SharePoint page as well, the accessibility open lab hours, if you want to work with Christina. Again, you'll get this presentation. See, I broke my own rule, and I wrote out the URL, so fix it. We also have an email address, ADA Compliance @triton.edu, myself, Dominique, Shelley, Christina, some other departments, because this is not one department. This is an entire institution issue. There are people from all over that have access to this. One of us will answer your emails. All right, so let's go back to our poll. This is our final poll questions. We'll see if this one works since I stopped in Slido. Let's think about how are you feeling now after you have a little bit of information. Let me see. I'm going to launch it this way. All right, this one is open-ended, so no cursing, because these are just open-ended words. How are you feeling now? You can join it at 1601-224 or scan. You might still have it open. A little more prepared. That's good. I'll take that. It is incredibly overwhelming. It's a lot to absorb. For me, this fall, as I was fixing the course that I'm teaching now at Dominican, I made sure all of my content was in place. Everything was ready to go. And then I went back and I went page by page and ran accessibility checkers and fixed each page individually. I made sure that what I needed to have in front of my students was done, and then I started to work on this. All right, pretty good. Better, a lot of work. Yeah, we all do. Still working on it. Remember, now that you know better, it's time to do better. All right, great. More to work on. Brain hurts. Yes, I understand. I understand. Okay, so the me talking to you part is officially done. If you are interested in getting a little bit of practice, I'll show you what this looks like, and then I'll come back to this screen. If you're a Google fan, you would click on Google. If you are, let me come back, on Slido. If you are a Microsoft Word person, you would go there. But basically, I put together a practice worksheet for you. When you click on it, you'll make your own copy, okay? There are 11 mistakes, accessibility mistakes in this document. If you want to do this activity, we have laptops available here. You can do it now, and then I'll show you the answers. If you're like, this is enough for my brain today, you can check this out later. And I have the answer key linked here, so you can see what the mistakes are. So keep that in mind. I'll come back to this screen for anybody that wants to stay and hang out. And I'll come to this screen because this is the URL to get to this presentation. So if you want this slide deck, you could either scan it or you can go to bit.ly. You'd have to put in the HTTP. Bit.ly, and this is case sensitive. So capital MMM or MMA for make materials accessible dash Triton with a capital T. Any questions for me? All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to absorb. It's a great sign that you're interested in getting started. I'll go back to that practice sheet. If anyone is interested in it, like I said, you're more than welcome to hang out here and practice or try it someplace else. Let me know how it goes. And with that, have a great afternoon.